As if guided by an invisible force, Sarah drove to the local animal shelter. Her heart raced as she turned down the gravel road. Would she find a connection? Would this creature unlock the vibrant life she so desperately craved? The moment she stepped through the shelter's doors, the cacophony of barking and howling enveloped her, pulling at her heartstrings. She wandered through the rows of cages, each one holding a story of hope, loss, and longing. But then, through the thundering noise, one particular bark pierced through. It was sharp, yet somehow filled with warmth, a bright note against the backdrop of despair. Sarah turned to find a scruffy mutt with a patchy coat and soulful brown eyes, staring at her with a mix of curiosity and mischief. In that instant, something shifted. The animal seemed to radiate an unmistakable energy that pulled her closer. It was as if he was saying, "Don't worry, I see you. I'll help you break free." She kneeled down to his level, and the dog bounded toward her, tail wagging furiously, jumping up and down as if he had just won the jackpot of love. Sarah felt a swirl of emotion, hope, excitement, and a bit of fear. Could this little dog be the key to opening her heart once again? "Hey there," she said softly, reaching out to pet him. "What's your name?" To her shock, the mutt barked in response, causing her to laugh. It was as if he were answering her question, already claiming his place in her life without saying a single word. She scanned the cage door and saw a tag that read Jake. His name fit him perfectly. He radiated a carefree spirit, and Sarah felt an uncanny sense of connection. Before she even realized what happened, she had filled out the adoption paperwork, her heart racing as Jake bounded around the small room, knocking over a water bowl in sheer excitement. They both shared a laugh, a spontaneous moment that felt electric. Leaving the shelter, Jake perched in the passenger seat, his head poking out of the window, tongue flapping in the wind. Sarah couldn't help but smile. For the first time in ages, the world seemed alive. Jake had a knack for living in the moment, and she found herself caught up in that exhilarating energy. As they pulled into her driveway, Sarah hoped that their lives would become an endless adventure together. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to embark on something extraordinary, something that would take her far beyond her current boundaries. The first few weeks with Jake were a swirl of unbridled joy and exploration. Each day, they discovered new paths and uncharted territories in the nearby parks fields of wildflowers, shady groves, and winding trails that beckoned them forward. Jake could sense the thrill of spontaneity in the air, urging her to embrace life fully. On one particular afternoon, Sarah decided to take Jake to a large open field, a place she had always passed but never felt brave enough to explore on her own. But now, with Jake by her side, the thought of boundaries faded away. Every patch of grass was a new opportunity for adventure. As they arrived, Jake leapt out of the car, darting towards the vast expanse of green. His unrestrained joy was infectious, and Sarah found herself laughing out loud, a sound that had become foreign to her over the past few years. As she tossed a frisbee, Jake leaped and caught it midair, his form impressively agile. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt such unfiltered happiness. Amid their games, Sarah noticed families picnicking and children playing. For the first time, she felt a twinge of envy, not for what they had, but for the sense of freedom they exuded. Jake rolled in the grass, his fur glistening in the sun, and in that moment, she made a promise to herself. She'd embrace it all life. Love, laughter. Days turned into weeks, with adventures building upon adventures. Jake didn't care for the constraints of human norms. She chased butterflies, frolicked through puddles, and met other dogs without hesitation. Every encounter was a chance to meet new friends, both canine and human. Sarah often daydreamed about taking Jake to a dog park where they could let loose completely and run wild. Then came a pivotal day. It began simply enough. A grueling morning at work had Sarah feeling drained. The plan for an afternoon walk had clung to her mind like a buoy amidst stormy seas, that promise of escape fueling her spirit. When they finally hit the trail, Sarah felt a weight lifted off her shoulders. As Jake raced ahead, chasing his imaginary friends, she had no choice but to let go of her worries. She couldn't help but laugh when he stumbled, tumbling into a pile of leaves only to pop back up, shaking them off as if they were a mere nuisance. As the sun dipped low, casting an enchanting golden hue across the landscape, Sarah realized that Jake was not merely a dog. He was a catalyst for change, igniting a fire within her that had long been extinguished. Each day unfolded like a new chapter, filled with lessons in trust, joy, and freedom. That connection, that unbreakable bond formed through laughter, spontaneity, and love, eclipsed any boundaries she had once held sacred. In the glow of sunset, Sarah whispered softly to Jake, "You're my best friend." His ears perked up, and as he nuzzled against her leg, it felt as though their souls were speaking, boundless and free. They were ready to embrace whatever life threw their way. Little did she know, this was only the beginning. Together, they would break through boundaries she had never imagined, and every moment lived together would deepen the extraordinary connection that had blossomed from that first, fateful encounter. Breaking the rules, the days turned into weeks, and Sarah found herself caught in a thrilling whirlwind of activities with Jake. Each morning, as the sun broke through the horizon, he'd nuzzle her awake, his excited barking sending a rush of energy through her veins. Their routine became a playful dance, filled with mischief and laughter. One chilly Saturday morning, as Sarah sipped her coffee while scrolling through social media, a spontaneous idea struck her. Instead of their usual walk around the block, why not take a road trip? Jake had been a bundle of joy, and the world was brimming with opportunities to explore: mountains, forests, lakes. The thought electrified her imagination. After hastily packing a small bag and finding Jake's favorite blanket, Sarah jumped into her car, energized by the prospect of adventure. The open road unfolded like a canvas waiting for vibrant brushstrokes. As they cruised past rolling hills, Jake's head out the window, ears flapping in the wind. She felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. They visited quaint little towns, stopping at roadside markets and delightful diners. Each stop was a new adventure, a chance to indulge Sarah's longing for connection and belonging. Jake was her constant companion, making friends wherever they went. Curious children would flock to him, immediately enchanted by his goofy demeanor, and Sarah reveled in moments that made her feel alive. At one of the market stalls, Sarah bought a leather collar and a shiny tag engraved with Jake's name. It felt like a rite of passage. He was no longer just a shelter dog. He was truly hers. As Jake wagged his tail, his joy seemingly amplifying the beauty around them, Sarah knew they would serve as each other's freedom. Their first few weeks together transformed into a symphony of laughter, warmth, and bonding. But life, as it often does, had a way of throwing in unexpected curveballs. It started with a sudden storm one evening. Dark clouds rolled in, covering the sky like a thick blanket. Thunder rumbled ominously, sending Jake into a panic. He dashed under the coffee table, a place he'd deemed his fortress of solitude. Sarah felt her heart tugging at the sight. She kneeled beside him, whispering words of comfort as the skies unleashed their fury. As the storm raged outside, Sarah felt smothered by her own fears and insecurities. It brought back memories of her childhood, when heavy rain often felt like an omen. But amidst her uncertainty, she realized that Jake was looking up at her with trusting eyes. In that moment, she understood. They were in this together, facing the storm side by side. That the storm might be less about the chaos outside, and more about what it unveiled within her. She grabbed a fuzzy blanket, joining Jake under the table, offering solace in vulnerability rather than fear. They sat close, hearts synchronized in brave defiance of the tumult outside. After the storm passed, Sarah knew they needed to do something to celebrate their resilience. Jake was eager to get out again, and so she made plans for a weekend camping trip. She had found a composite of trails leading to a serene lake, a perfect collaboration of nature and adventure. The following day, Sarah packed their essentials and drove to the site, excitement electrifying the air. Jake turned out to be a natural in the outdoors, running wild, sniffing everything he could reach. As they set up the tent, he tumbled around, forgetting the boundaries of the world around him. When night fell, they sat around a crackling campfire, the stars shimmering overhead like distant diamonds. The combination of fresh air and companionship made Sarah's heart sing. With Jake comfortable at her feet, she felt fulfilled, like pieces of a puzzle finally locking into place. Suddenly, a rustling noise startled her from the cozy warmth of their moment. Sarah's heart raced as the sound grew louder, branches breaking and leaves crunching. She instinctively reached for a flashlight, illuminating the darkness around them, revealing only shadows. Jake's ears perked up, his instincts kicking in. He growled lowly, the calm confidence he exuded inflating her courage. The initial fear subsided enough for her to investigate alongside him. She was reminded of the bond they had together. They could navigate any storm, both metaphorical and literal. The rustling subsided, leaving only the distant sound of crickets. Maybe it was just a raccoon or some playful deer, she thought. Sarah laughed, trying to shake off her lingering anxiety. Jake seemed undisturbed, returning to his relaxed demeanor, nestled closer to her. But as the night deepened, the atmosphere shifted. Every creak of wood and rustle of leaves heightened her senses. They nestled closer under the blanket as the full moon cast an ethereal glow. Sarah had built walls around her heart for a long time, and now, in this unsettling environment, those walls began to close in. As her thoughts began to wander, Sarah realized how much Jake had changed her life. The love they shared had become her savior, commandeering her memories of confinement and transforming them into moments of joy. It was as if the universe conspired for their souls to intertwine. Just when the soothing sounds of the forest had started to calm her, a sudden crash erupted nearby, sending adrenaline surging through her veins. Jake sprang to his feet, barking furiously, his protective instinct activated. Sarah's heart raced. Every fear she had ever had about being alone in the wilderness threatened to consume her. "Stay close, Jake," she urged, her voice trembling slightly. In the dim light, she could barely make out the shape of a figure lurking in the shadows. Panic gripped her, forcing her instincts into overdrive. She grabbed the flashlight, determined to reveal the mystery of what lurked in the darkness, Jake by her side, guarding her fiercely. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice steady, even as fear clawed at her insides. A low growl came from the darkness, echoing eerily. Time stretched endlessly as her pulse fired with urgency. She swung the flashlight in its direction, illuminating the figure of a large wolf standing cautiously close, a wild beauty with piercing eyes that seemed to reflect not only the moonlight but something deeper, something soulful. For a moment, everything halted. The wolf and Jake stood at a crossroads, silently measuring each other. In that suspended moment, Sarah felt a strange connection, a reminder of the wild freedom they shared, a reminder that they, too, were creatures of this earth, forever yearning for a place to belong. Using this moment of clarity, Sarah slowly stepped forward, urged Jake to stay behind, and spoke softly. "We mean no harm." Her voice was a gentle breeze against the backdrop of the wilderness. Miraculously, the wolf hesitated, its posture softening, the energy shifting. After what felt like an eternity, the wolf turned and melted back into the forest, the mystery dissipating like fog under the sun. Sarah exhaled, her heart racing still. Jake appeared to calm gradually, looking up at her with genuine trust. It was in that moment that a flood of wisdom poured over her. Boundaries do not always serve to protect. Sometimes they keep us from claiming our true potential. Together with Jake, she had faced the unknown and survived. They had ventured into the wilderness metaphorically and literally, and come out stronger, their unshakable bond reaffirmed. As the fire crackled on the dying embers, Sarah realized that fear would always exist. But all it took was a little courage and the right companion to wrestle it back into the shadows. Tomorrow would bring its own adventures, its own challenges, but she was ready to face them boundless and free. And in the coziness of their little tent, surrounded by the great unknown, she lay back, her heart now lighter than air, feeling Jake's warmth at her side. Together, they were limitless, willing to break all the rules and redefine what it meant to live fully, the chase. The morning sun broke over the horizon, casting a warm golden glow across the campsite. Sarah awoke to the comforting sound of Jake rustling around, his eager paws patting against the tent. She up her eyes, a content smile forming on her lips. They had survived the night faced the unknown, and the bond they shared felt stronger than ever. Today promised new adventures, new discoveries, and perhaps even the chance to push their boundaries further. After a quick breakfast of granola and fruit, Sarah decided it was time for a day hike. She wanted to explore the surrounding trails, eager to see what hidden wonders the woods might unveil. Jake, sensing the energy of the day, bounded excitedly in circles, his tail wagging like a flag of enthusiasm. "Let's go, buddy," she cheered, grabbing his leash and strapping on her hiking boots. The two set off into the vast unknown, with Jake leading the way, sniffing every tree and poking his snout into every nook and cranny. The air was crisp and invigorating, and each step filled with potential. The trail twisted through dense foliage and towering trees, sunlight streaming through the leaves, creating a dappled pattern on the ground. Sarah felt a surge of energy as they moved deeper into the woods. But with every step, the thrill of adventure mingled with an underlying sense of vulnerability. What else was lurking in the shadows? As they continued along the path, Sarah became aware of the sounds around them, the calls of birds, the rustle of leaves, and the soft crunch of twigs underfoot. She felt alive, her heart racing with excitement as she imagined the undiscovered beauty just around the corner. Suddenly, Jake stopped in his tracks, his ears perked, tail rigid. With a low growl, he looked off into the thicket. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Something was definitely out there. She knelt beside him, scanning the surroundings. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, trying to remain calm. Then, from the underbrush, a flash of brown darted past them. It was a deer, graceful and swift, disappearing into the trees before she could catch a proper glimpse. Jake reacted instantaneously. Instinctively, he began to chase after it, barking and bounding forward with uncontained enthusiasm. "Jake, wait!" Sarah yelled, panic threading through her voice as he tore off down the trail. The bond they shared, built on trust and freedom, suddenly felt strained. She raced after him, heart pounding, fear gripping her tightly. Jake was fast, propelled by an exhilarating urge to chase, and she had to push herself to keep up. Each breath was labored as she navigated the uneven terrain, branches snapping and thorns scraping against her skin. "Jake, come back!" she called. But the only response was the fading sound of his barks echoing through the trees. Shadows danced in her mind, igniting worries of what might happen. Would he get lost? Encounter danger? She felt a surge of adrenaline that blurred the line between what was exhilarating and what was terrifying. After what felt like an eternity of sprinting, Sarah emerged into a clearing. The scene before her took her breath away, a majestic view of rolling hills and a shimmering lake stretching into the distance. But her heart sank as she realized Jake wasn't there, and in that moment of beauty, panic enveloped her. "Jake," she cried out again, voice cracking. "Where are you?" Forcing herself to breathe, she scanned the area, hoping to catch sight of him. Just as her mind began spinning with scenarios of what could have happened, she spotted a movement near the edge of the lake. A surge of hope sparked within her, and she took off again, racing toward the water. As she approached, relief washed over her upon seeing Jake romping joyfully along the shore, splashing playfully in the shallow waters. But it was short-lived. The moment she reached him, she noticed something amiss. His posture had changed. He looked alert, fixated on something beyond the water's edge. "Jake? What is it?" she asked softly, watching as he stood rigid with his hackles raised. Then she saw Ita, large, dark shape emerging from the woods at the opposite end of the lake. Sarah's heart raced as she squinted, trying to discern what it was. The figure broke through the tree line, moving with an elegance that gave her pause. It was another wolf, sleek and proud, eyes gleaming with an intensity that was both breathtaking and daunting. The sight brought a rush of conflicting emotions. Jake's instincts kicked in. He slowly moved to stand between the wolf and Sarah, barking defiantly. "No, Jake," she urged, realizing that he was fearful of the unknown, just as she had been the night before in the tent. She watched nervously as the wolf paused, studying them both with an intelligent gaze. Her heart pounded in her chest. All her instincts screamed at her to retreat, but she couldn't let fear control her. Instead, she took a deep breath, grounding herself, deciding to stand beside Jake. "Easy, boy," she said, squeezing his leash tightly while keeping her eyes on the wolf. "Let's not start any trouble now." The wolf moved closer, eyes locked on Jake, who continued to growl but was less aggressive now. It was a strange standoff, both sides scrutinizing, as if weighing the intentions of the other. The sunlight streamed through the branches above, casting an almost ethereal glow on the scene, moments suspended in time. Suddenly, the wolf took a few cautious steps back, its posture shifting from predatory to curious. In that instant, Sarah felt a jolt of understanding. This wolf wasn't a threat. It was merely exploring, intrigued by their presence. Her tension began to ease slightly. But before she could register the shift in dynamics, the wolf turned and darted back into the trees, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. Jake ceased his barking and stared after it, confused, but calmed. "Wow," Sarah said breathlessly, kneeling beside him. Did that really just happen? Her heart still raced from the encounter, the thrill mixed with a dash of fear. Jake nosed around the area, as if trying to decipher the scent the wolf had left behind. Sarah couldn't help but smile at his curiosity, yet the gravity of the situation lingered. She had confronted her fears head-on, destabilizing the boundaries she had meticulously constructed around her heart. After everything that had happened, the two returned to the campsite, Sarah still buzzing with the excitement of the chase. But the experience also left her with a sense of vulnerability. She had witnessed beauty in the wilderness, but she had also stared into the abyss, the raw unpredictability of nature that mirrored her own life. Back at the campsite, she decided to strike up a fire, coaxing it into life as the sun began to set. Together, she and Jake settled beside the warmth, the crackling sounds filling the air. Sarah fed him treats, her heart still fluttering from their close encounter, the severity of nature reminding her of life's beautiful yet fragile existence. As they sat together, Jake resting his head on her lap, she reflected on how far they had come. From the confines of her apartment to bonding with a wolf in the woods, she felt empowered and delighted by this journey. But just as she was about to lose herself in the warmth of the fire, a sudden sharp rustle nearby jolted her back to reality. The woods, once a safe haven, now had an air of uncertainty lingering in the shadows. Was it merely the wind, or was there something more? Jake sat up, whining softly, alert and uneasy. Sarah's heart raced again, an electric tension running through her. Would the wolf return, or had the wilderness called forth something darker this time? She gripped the flashlight, looking into the thickening twilight, uncertainty clawing at her thoughts. As the trees whispered secrets and the darkness deepened, Sarah felt a shift around the man, energy vibrating through the air that suggested they were not alone. She exchanged a glance with Jake, who was on full alert, his instincts kicking into overdrive once more. "Stay close, buddy," she whispered, tinged with both fear and excitement. Whatever was lurking in the shadows, she knew that they would face it together, boundless, brave, and utterly alive. The adventure was far from over. Sharing secrets, the fire crackled softly as twilight faded into night, and the shadows lengthened ominously around Sarah and Jake. Every rustle in the underbrush sent a thrill of anxiety through her, but she knew she couldn't let fear consume her. Instead, she focused on Jake, who sensed her tension. He remained close, his body tense but eyes watching her with unwavering loyalty, as if saying, "I'm right here. We'll face whatever comes together." As the stars emerged, painting the sky a tapestry of brilliance, Sarah took a deep breath to calm her racing heart. "All right, let's make the most of the moment," she said, trying to infuse her tone with confidence. She reached into her backpack for the small journal she'd packed in old habit from her high school days. Writing always helped her process her thoughts, and tonight, she felt an urgent need to capture the magic of this adventure. Jake nestled beside her, his warmth grounding her as she opened the journal. The first few pages reflected her tentative musings about life before Jake days filled with monotony and loneliness. But as she turned deeper into the journal, the entries transformed, infused with a sense of wonder and companionship. Excitement bubbled within her as she recounted their escapades, the whimsical moments, the challenges, and the breathtaking beauty of their newfound freedom. While she wrote, she talked to Jake, the sound of her voice soothing her as much as it seemed to soothe him. "You know, it's funny," she began, pen pausing in thought. "I used to think adventures were only for the travel blogs and Instagram posts. But here we are, in the wilderness, chasing a deer and facing wolves." Jake's ears perked up at her words, as if he understood. There was something therapeutic about sharing her thoughts aloud, even if it was just with her furry companion. With every word, she felt lighter, shedding layers of worry and fear. Just then, a sudden rustling from the nearby bushes interrupted her musings. Instantly, Jake's posture shifted. He stood, his senses on high alert. "Okay, buddy, let's not jump to conclusions," Sarah murmured, though her voice trembled slightly. The sound persisted, drawing nearer. Panic surged through her mind, swirling with known unknowns. It was too close this time for comfort. She grabbed the flashlight again, flicking it toward the sound. The beam sliced through the darkness, heart pounding in anticipation. Within moments, a curious figure emerged from the shadows, revealing itself to be a raccoon. Sarah exhaled sharply, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "Not a wolf after all, just a little troublemaker," she chuckled, relief flooding her yet. Jake remained rooted, unamused by any distraction. But as the raccoon scampered away, the weight of tension returned, heavier than before. Whatever had prowled through the dark had not yet retreated. Instinct told her that there was something lurking just beyond the safety of the fire's light. Feeling an urge to ease the heaviness in the air, she wrapped her arms around Jake, who melted into her side, providing a soothing warmth. "It's okay, Jake," she whispered. "We've faced so much already. What's another night in the wild, right?" In a heartbreaking turn, she realized how far she had come since adopting him. The walls she had built around herself were crumbling, dismantled piece by piece by the spirited bond they shared. She was learning to break the rules, to trust to let go. As midnight approached, the night deepened, and Sarah settled into her sleeping bag, while Jake instinctively placed himself between her and the dark woods, a brave guardian against the unknown. The calming sound of the crackling fire lulled her into introspection, allowing her mind to traverse back through the events of the past few days, their first encounter, their shared laughter, and the life lessons wrapped in moments of vulnerability. Underneath the star sky, Sarah began to feel certain that whatever shadows threatened them would not prevail against the strength they had built together. However, a flicker of doubt crept in, and she felt the weight of uncertainty settle over her once more. What other challenges lay ahead? In the quietness, as her eyes began to flutter closed, she momentarily sensed Jake's stance shifting. Was there something more out there? Anxiety prickled at her skin. But before she could convince herself to sit upright, sleep found her. The dreams came abruptly, chaotic and wild, a whirlwind of images. She saw herself back in her apartment, lost in the haze of isolation. Yet this time, Jake was at her side, dancing through the darkness, pulling her back into the light of life. Suddenly, she was back in the woods, surrounded by mystery and beauty. But this time flashing alarms rang in her ears. Shadows danced among the trees, and a deeper growl reverberated through the ground. She woke suddenly, breathless, a cold sweat glistening on her skin. Shaking off the remnants of the dream, she looked down at Jake, who seemed restless, watching the woods intently. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, summoning the flashlight again. Just then, a figure materialized in the darkness, not quite discernible, but moving through the trees. Her heart raced. All rational thought fled her mind, replaced by pure instinct. She felt vulnerable yet determined this time, refusing to let fear swallow her whole. "Stay close, Jake," she commanded as she slowly rose, flashlight aimed at the intrusion. To her relief and surprise, as the beam of light illuminated the figure, she recognized it was the wolf from the previous day. But this time the animal appeared larger, more regal, carrying an aura of assertive dominance. Sarah watched, entranced, as the wolf padded quietly closer, its eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her heart skip. Jake stood defiantly in front of her, clearly unhappy with the visitor. "Easy, boy," Sarah murmured, though she felt her heart racing in uncertainty. The wolf paused, as if gauging their reactions, its confident stance revealing that it was not afraid. In that suspended moment, Sarah felt an undeniable pull, a connection that was raw and primal, echoing the night's earlier lessons. The wolf seemed to mirror her fears, yet also her aspirations, the untamed spirit within her, battling for freedom. As the wolf moved closer, the air thickened with tension. Sarah's instincts kicked in once more. Should she retreat, stay still, or make her presence known? The forest was alive with tension in that moment as she faced the unknown. "Just remember, we're partners in this," she said softly to Jake, who growled lowly, still protective. Jake's instinct to guard her felt strong against the majestic beast. Yet as they stood there, the wolf looked at her with an unexpected gentleness. She felt an urge to understand, a desire to connect, but how could she bridge that chasm? She took a tentative step forward, surprising herself, urging Jake to stay behind. To her disbelief, the wolf also stepped forward cautiously, closing the distance between them. In that moment of vulnerability, Sarah whispered, "I'm not afraid of you." As if sensing the shift between them, the wolf tilted its head, the fierceness in its gaze softening. It didn't come to attack. It was discerning, curious, perhaps even welcoming. It was a moment suspended in time where boundaries began to blur, and they were no longer merely a woman and a wolf. They were travelers navigating a mystical bond. But then, out of nowhere, a sharp crack resounded through the air, snapping branches like thunder. The wolf's entire demeanor shifted. It turned abruptly, eyes wide with alarm, momentarily forgetting Sarah's presence. Jake reacted instantly, barking fiercely, a protective growl rumbling from deep within him. The wolf dashed back into the shadows, watching from afar, shadowed by uncertainty. "What was that?" Sarah murmured, catching her breath, heart hammering in her chest. Suspicions grew as a darker presence settled upon the campsite. Suddenly, she heard the crash again, not far off, coming through the thicket. She turned to Jake, who stood at her side, ready to defend. The tension mounted. Instinct told her they were being watched. "Stay close, Jake," she ordered, fear clawing at her throat as they both faced the source of the noise. Watching her, surroundings attentively, her heart with the raw intensity of the moment, the primal instinct to protect, to survive. As the bushes parted, what emerged sent shivers down her spine, a massive bear, lumbering into their vicinity, a creature that seemed otherworldly in its size and stature. The hairs on the back of Sarah's neck stood on end, and for a split second, she felt paralyzed, her resolve teetering. "Jake!" she hissed, heart racing as the bear turned to face them, nostrils flaring. It was undeniably huge and irrefutably powerful. A fierce will entwined with bravado flooded her veins. This was a moment she had to navigate carefully. "Jake!" growled fiercely, the sound echoing through the night, both a warning and a display of loyalty. Sarah tightened her grip on the flashlight, trying to appear brave despite the danger that loomed so closely. With adrenaline coursing through her, she caught the bear's gaze, willing it to see her as neither prey nor distraction. "Stay back," she shouted, her voice steady but filled with anxiety. In that pregnant pause, the world around them seemed to hang in the balance, a quiet anticipation hanging in the air. Would the bear charge? Would they be forced to flee? But slowly, as if sensing the bond between Sarah and Jake, the bear stepped back, lifting its nose to sniff the air. Then it turned, lumbering into the forest where shadows danced and secrets lingered. The moment the bear withdrew, Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she had been holding. She turned to Jake, who stood resolute, still on guard. "We did it, buddy. We faced it together," she breathed, awe and relief mingling in her voice. That unexpected encounter reminded her of her inner strength, the power forged from a true partnership, the ability to face fear head-on. They had journeyed through chaos and uncertainty, yet together, they had defied the odds, proving that love and courage could conquer the darkest of nights. As dawn approached, the horizon brightening with the promise of a new day, Sarah leaned down to Jake, placing her forehead against his. "Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. No boundaries, no limits." With renewed determination, they prepped to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead, united against the unknown, their journey through the wilderness only just beginning.